Hi, and welcome to the 10 square metre workshop. I've been meaning to make a router sled for some time, but I couldn't make up my mind. Should it be a coping type or one that follows the track? And then it dawned on me, why not make one that could do both? So let's get started. I shall be making it out of this 12mm acrylic sheet. It's actually a Korean offcut, but ordinary acrylic will do. 10mm thick is the ideal, or perhaps some other material you have to hand. First step was to bandsaw out the 6 pieces required. If you're interested, here's a cutting list. It will be assembled in this configuration and held together by 6mm cap bolts. After centre drilling the top part, the parts were clamped together square and then through drilled 5mm, which is 6mm tapping size. Using spare drills as dowels as you go, make sure you don't lose registration. The same procedure is followed on the other guide. On the base plate, the 4 main and front side holes are all tapped 6mm. If using a softer material, inserts could be used. The remaining hole is drilled 6mm clearance, as are all the holes in the top 2 layers, followed by counterboring the top layer 10mm to take the cap head bolt. For the handles, I could have just chosen some cupboard or door handles. Instead, I 3D printed a pair and fitted aluminium inserts threaded to 6mm. At this point, all the edges were sanded smooth. I'm choosing to cut the slot for the side clamp on my milling machine, but it could of course be done on a router table. And if you're making this, you must have a router table, otherwise why would you be making it? A ramping cut was taken 6mm wide until it was right through. With the slot cut, it's time to make a rebate for the follower. I'm working on the back here of course. This rebate I'm making 5mm deep and 3.5mm cut either side. And here's the slot finished. Whilst it was disassembled, I took the opportunity to mark out the holes for the clamps, drill these out 4.2mm and tap them all 5mm. For the adjusting clamp, I could have just used a coach bolt, finding a couple of flats to follow the groove as I usually do. But I had this spare male knob, so I made a brass follower. This runs in the recess at the back of the groove. And the movement is pretty smooth and the lock's pretty positive. Reassembled, I can now decide the best position for the other handle. And I think that's probably going to be the most comfortable. I then sanded the 2 legs until it was square. This is for illustrative purposes. I actually did it on a cast iron table. To add track following sled ability to this, I need to make provision for 2 pegs on the bottom. To ensure the holes are equidistant to the guide pegs, I'm reusing this jig, or rather repurposing it. Drilled and reamed to 6mm, I checked them with a gauge pin before turning up the two brass pegs. Mounted on the bottom of the sled, it's a smooth sliding fit. No sign of wobble at all. These pins I'm storing on the top surface so they don't get lost. My sled has similarities to commercial versions, available for around £100, but with some differences. Let me go through those. Firstly, the handles. These are often tall handles to grip like that, but really what you need is downward pressure, so palm grips are much more useful. The follower are these two legs, which mount against the frame and slide back and forwards. They're solidly connected, not up a height, which gives a much firmer grip. The latches, there's two of them. Normally there's one in the middle. That means short lengths can't be gripped, and longer thin lengths could bend up under the pressure of the cutter. So let's give it a go. Firstly, you put anything to protect from tear out in, then your main piece. Push the guide up and tighten it so it can't move sideways. Then place against the fence and slide them forward until they're just touching and clamp. The height of the support means you can cut up to 12mm deep without this getting in the way. However, if you need to cut a deeper cut, then you stop the movement with the cutter in the middle of this gap and then just pull it away from the table. You can use quite large cutters without a problem. So let's try a cut. Remove the part, and yep, works very well. Even with a fairly old cutter, it's quite a clean cut. I also tried a rounding cutter for this end, and despite quite a bad knot, it's a nice smooth cut. So there we have it, a very useful jig, made mainly for my scrap box. And it seems to work quite well. If you're interested, why not make one? It's not that hard. That's all for this time. See you next time. Bye for now.